want to see Jesus lifted high, a banner that flies across the sky, that all men might see the truth and know He is the way to heaven. I want to see, I'm on the air. Okay, we'll set the, very good. So welcome, this is Jim's Table Topics, and this is our September 2022 show. It's actually September 19th, Monday, September 19th. And the title of our show today is Primary Election Recap, Constitution Day, which was September 17th. And I got a little video clip and I want to talk about some educational issues that we seem to keep on tripping over across the nation. But at any rate, that'll be the show today. And of course, we'll keep in the same format with the good news and everything else. We had the primary election. It was September 6th. And I think Davis had somewhere around 25% participation. Could have been 23, 24. I don't know. I forgot to crunch that percentage, but I do have the raw data. But it looks like about 1,697 ballots were pulled for the Republican ticket, and there was 3,573 Democrat ballots pulled. So, but I think our saving grace will be the fact that there's 14,636 registered unenrolled voters. Hopefully they're the ones that are going to decide this election, because the party system is, I guess the party is breaking up. They're not having that much fun anymore. Even though, again, as full disclosure, I am the chairman of the Danvers Republican Committee, and we will be having a meeting September 21st, 2 nights from tonight. But at any rate, at least I digress. Again, in line with the topic, the primary election, the recap, I mean, what are we missing here? I mean, why is it that, we the people don't seem to get any voter, polling or, information until like a week or two before the election. It's like we're all in the cone of silence. Just live your lives, do whatever you're doing. Don't pay attention to the voting stuff. But I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but and the voter apathy. Well, we'll see. Because if we had 25% come out for the primary, we'll see what happens. In the general election come November 8th, maybe I think it is. But yeah, I mean, one interesting thing, because I did work the polls, and I worked in precinct 7. So if I remember correctly, off the top of my head, we had probably like 317 people come physically in and vote, but then we also had 340 something somewhere around there. It was more than 317, so it was more people either mailed in their vote or early voted or absentee, whatever. That all those extra ones were counted in. So when you checked in your tallies there, the incoming tally was 317, but votes that were actually cast were like 640, 50 something for the thing. So, it was just an interesting point. I mean, of course, we've never had mail-in voting, and then there's all sorts of other issues that we go with. I mean, one candidate had a write-in, Mike Bean had a write-in campaign going for state rep for the 13th Essex District, and basically he, what did he do? He didn't let me know until like Friday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon of Labor Day weekend. So then you had Saturday, Sunday, and Monday all, it was a 3-day weekend. And then voting was the 6th, which, that's another. Who plans to have an election day on the Tuesday of a 3-day weekend? But at any rate, maybe that's why a lot of people mailed it in. But still, I don't like the mail-in vote. But the funny thing is, we just went through a whole initiative to get all these signatures for the, to say no to licenses for illegal immigrants. And, why couldn't we mail in? Why couldn't the citizens mail in their signatures? Why couldn't we have online signing like everything else? I mean, you know, I mean, what's the difference here? And then it brings me back to Mike Bean, who had the write-in campaign, and we don't know, who knows all these laws, and actually they changed the law because apparently you used to have 13 days after the primary to file your, I accept my nomination from the primary, but they changed it to the 2 days after. And so Mike was unaware of this until, he thought he had 13 days, but then they said, no, you got to do it Thursday. So he went online. He thought he could do it online. He said, no, you got to go in. And so by that time, it's 4 o'clock before the, Thursday, before the 5 o'clock deadline. He got stuck in traffic because of the orange line and who knows what else. But he didn't make it. So now the Mass GOP is going to, we're filing some lawsuits to see if we can get that rectified because just the way Mike wasn't notified. Apparently the Secretary of State said they sent out all the letters to all the write-in candidates, but he wasn't a registered write-in candidate, so he didn't get the notice. He didn't know. So at any rate, it's just a, shall we say, a comedy of errors, and it's a shame that the things are so convoluted. You need to. Yeah, I guess you have to go to college to figure out the process because no one's going to tell you. But at any rate, we're still working on that, and hopefully we'll have some kind of resolution this week because they got to start printing the ballots. So we'll see what happens. Okay, so that's what we're doing there, and so now we're just gonna again, before I get into the real meat and potatoes, the nuts and bolts, get down to it, all the fake news that we don't want to hear. I got to talk about some good news, okay? So, and my good news report today is basically, we just need more good news, less fake news. I mean, it all depends on what you're focusing on, And so again, I get questioned all the time, Jim, what's this good news you're talking about? Why, And so the good news is basically that Jesus came, in the Christian faith. He came and he died for our sins, and he wishes us all to accept his gift of redemption through that death on the cross, and to repent of our sins and to follow Jesus in his commands in his Bible. And so basically, then you say, well, what does all that entail? Well, everybody's on a journey, You're on your material journey. We're on our chronological journey. We got to get on our spiritual journey. So in the Christian faith, there's a thing called the Apostles' Creed, and some people just, when they recite this in church, the pastor will say, so what do we Christians believe? And so we just read the Apostles' Creed, which just says, I believe in God, the Father Almighty, the creator of heaven and earth, and in Jesus Christ, his only Son, our Lord, who was conceived by the Holy Spirit, born of the Virgin Mary, suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, died, and was buried. He ascended into hell, and on the third day he rose again from the dead. He ascended into heaven, and he is seated at the right hand of God, the Father Almighty. From there he will come to judge the living and the dead. I believe in the Holy Spirit, the Holy Catholic Church, the communion of saints, the forgiveness of sins, the resurrection of the body, and life everlasting. Amen. So that's what we believe. And all the tenets and the reasoning and behind it is all in the Bible that we follow and try to live up to. We can't. Hence, that's why we're sinners and we have to repent and try. We just got to try to do better. That's all. As Christians, there's a lot of things. In the world stage, it's a world view. I mean, there's think globally, act locally, and as Christians, we try to just do the best we can with what we have. And God doesn't want us to not everyone's going to be a martyr, but looks like the way the world stage is going, some of these things of biblical prophecy, like buying and selling in the marketplace without the mark of the beast, and then of course we have the we're getting down to the bitcoins and people you won't be, they're trying to get rid of cash so that you can only use certain methods of payment. So then that kind of getting right up to that. You can't buy or sell in the marketplace unless you have whatever it is that they're going to come up with. So at any rate, again, and I've read these before, in the end times, a lot of things are going to happen, wars, rumors of wars, all sorts of natural disasters which are happening. Of course, they're blaming it on global warming and all this other stuff, but it's all been predicted that all this stuff will happen. And I kind of looked at some of the things, and it's really not as bad as we think, because, a lot of these natural disasters that we're having, more people died, in the late 1800s and 1900s through all these storms that we're having than as now. But I mean, I know we have early warning and everything else, but we also have, 10 times as many people too. So, we have to look at the facts, and see, and that's the beauty of what they call wisdom. Knowledge is great to have. You know all these little bits and pieces, but wisdom is being able to take it and apply it to real life situations, So, you can be the smartest person in the world, but if you don't know how to apply that knowledge, sorry, you're out of business. We need to be able to look at a problem and solve the problem, and that's just one of the things that sometimes I think our elite and the way our culture is heading is they're not solving problems. Well, I think sometimes we're creating more problems than we got, but. At any rate, let me just double check my time here. Yeah, I think we're doing pretty good. So I'm going to, that'll be my take on the good news for today. So just remember that we're all on a spiritual journey. We all need to focus on, why we're here, the eternal question, right? Why are we on this earth? What are we here for? So it would probably be a good idea to find out. And again, one of the the tenets is to know, love, and serve God. And so we've got to do these things. And by serving God, God tells us that we need, because everyone is made in the image and likeness of God. We are all created by our Creator with unalienable rights in His image. And so we all have to treat each other, in that respect. We all have to show dignity and respect for each other, no matter what our differences are, no matter who we are, no matter what. And so that's it, the one-on-one. I mean, when you look at the global stage and the federal, the federal stage, whatever you call it, I mean, it's all fear-mongering and hate and this and that. I mean, even today in Danvers, apparently, like I said, today is September 19th. I heard that there was going to be some kind of healing service tonight at the library outside, and if it's raining, they'll take it inside because someone was holding a banner up about something that the Jews were responsible for 9/11, so I guess we need a healing service for that. I don't know how that all works, but again, sometimes I wonder about all these events that happen. I kind of wonder if these people who were holding up the signs were kind of related to Jesse Smollett, and if you don't get the if you don't get the reference, then you should find out. But I'm not going to tell you. So, yeah, Jesse Smollett. But again, what's really happening around here? I mean, a lot of these things that happen are staged. I mean, the whole January 6th, J6, they blown out of proportion. They keep hopping on it at the expense of telling us what we really need to know, like what are our legislators doing and what's going on? Why are all these laws creating more problems than solving problems? That's what we need to know. We're supposed to have elections to resolve these things. So I think we need, when we were kids, we had all the income free. Everybody, all right, let's come in and regroup here, people. We need to do that with our illustrious leaders. Any incumbent who's been in there for any amount of time has got to go. I don't care if they're a Republican or Democrat. They got to go. They've been in the system too long. They're not solving problems. They're not part of the solution. They are the problem. I mean, and all these people, they all walk in line with the Democrats are in line with Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and all those leaders. They've been there over 40 years. It's ridiculous. And the same thing on the Republican side. We got Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, and Mitt Romney, and all these people. Hey, Mitt Romney was a politician here in Massachusetts. Now he's a senator from Utah. Don't these people ever do something? They're supposed to be public servants, but are they really serving us? Really? No, they're not. No, they're not. Okay, you know what? In fact, David, cue up that picture number 1. We'll just slap up that picture number 1. No one really understands what's really going on in the Ukraine. The Ukraine, when you talk about foreign aid is just giving money to foreign allies, except part of the deal is when you give them that money, as Joe Biden eloquently pointed out, you get some of it back. It goes to the big guy. It's been on Hunter Biden's laptop. They've denied it. They block all the truth about what's going on. But it wasn't just the Biden family. It was the Pelosi's. They get some of their money. Mitt Romney. It's across the party lines because their dirty laundry is now. That's why they hate Trump so much. He's exposing this, and it's not working. But again, yeah, you can take that down, David. I appreciate it. But in the Ukraine, they were getting a lot of money, and so the joke around regular people who talk about this stuff is that foreign aid is just money laundering for the rich and famous. They give all this money, they give billions to the Ukraine and China and Iran, Iraq, and then they filter millions of it back to the people who voted for it and gave it to them. So that's how it works. Will we ever find it? No. I mean, because you look at what's happening with we've got numerous whistleblowers from the FBI coming out and everything else, but nothing's really coming through the fake news because they can't report the truth. They'll all be in jail. So no, we get all the lies and the propaganda and the stupid stuff. So that's why YouTube usually, when they see me, and they'll block my show, and people who talk like me, they'll block their show, thinking that but we're just they wrote a song back in the '60s. Tell it like it is, baby. Okay, so here we go. I think that these elections. Let's see. When we're talking about elections, we got to wonder to ourselves. Again, like I said, we got Democratic leaders, we got Republican leaders, and they're all doing the same things for the most part. I mean, on all the big issues, they win, whoever they are. It just seems funny that the taxes always are going up. Nothing ever goes down when it comes to the government, and the government keeps growing. Now they're going to hire another 87,000 IRS agents, and it's like, that's in the what do you call it? The Inflation Reduction Bill. So what does 87,000 armed IRS agents have to do with reducing the inflation? I give up. But again, we don't need more government workers. We need to shave government down. Government's spending too much money. It's bloated. It's way beyond the scope. That's why we'll be talking about the Constitution. The Constitution is basically a box that the framers, the American, the founding fathers and the framers built to constrain the activity of government. And unfortunately, government has continuously just kept growing and growing, and their biggest mandates in the Constitution are to protect our borders. And they're not doing that. That's the only thing that they should be doing and focusing on, and they're not doing it, and it came home to roost, didn't it? See, because Massachusetts is a sanctuary city, and Massachusetts sanctuary state, and all sorts of towns and cities before then, said, oh, we're sanctuary cities, we're sanctuaries, oh yeah, please, yeah, we welcome everyone, everyone's welcome here. We got signs all over Danvers, if you read all of that, everyone's welcome. So when they sent 50 illegal immigrants to Martha's Vineyard, I guess it was the end of the world, huh? And they've been doing it in New York, They've been doing it in Washington, D.C. and all sorts of other Democratic strongholds, because all the border states are Republican and red states, and they're flooded with millions, hundreds of thousands into the millions of illegal immigrants all day long, every day for the last 2 years, ever since Joe Biden's been in office. And they get a fraction, okay? They get a fraction of the illegal immigrants, and all of a sudden it's a major crisis. So again, it's going to come home to roost. They have to go somewhere. So, you know, and I know that Danvers is kind of highly concerned that a lot of kids are not they want to go to Essex Tech or St. John's Prep, Bishop Falcon, or some private school, because, the 8th graders aren't going in volumes into the Danvers High School. So they have beefed up, to teach more kids in Danvers High that are actually showing up, to the point where they wanted to cap how many kids went to Essex Tech. So even if they put a cap on it, they're going to go someplace else, because if the parents, they're supposed to be doing a survey to see what the issues really are, but they haven't done it yet, and it's been 6-7 months now. I don't know what the holdup is, but we all know, because they don't want to know what the answer is, because everything's gone woke. You go woke, you go broke, okay? And that's what's happening here. So the school systems, again, that's what we're going to turn this around to now. I just want to, it's going to be tough to try to focus on our Constitution, our American history, and our way of life if we're not really learning in school what we should be learning. So I'm going to kind of just shift focus here for a minute, and we're going to talk about the school systems, okay? And so I got a video here. It's about, I don't know how long it was. It's, it's about 16 minutes. And it's just a little expose on what's going on in the schools. So again, it's, it's happening across the country, and it's happened here in Danvers. I mean, they say they don't talk about, and teach all this stuff, but it is being taught under the different names. You can, it's like a shell game. they call the well, you'll hear about it in this video, and then we're going to just show a few. We'll talk about it for a bit about yeah. So you can cue up the video, David. We'll get into that in about a minute, and so that video, like I said, it'll go about 16 minutes, and we're going to talk about the DEI, the social emotional learning, and all these little buzzwords, so that we can go, bingo, we got it. Every time you hear the words, you just write it out. If the kids aren't being taught this, then why are these the words that are always being used? You see, and that's going to be the question. So, are we teaching critical race theory? Are we, is that what we're teaching here? And we're teaching gender fluidity and all this stuff that people have issues with. It's not age appropriate. I mean, it can be taught up in the higher grades, but why is it down in the 3rd grade? And that was the big issue down in Florida. And but again, we've talked about this before. But is anything happening? No, nothing's ever going to happen. Nothing's going to change. Because I'm on the outside looking in. It's the parents that are going to have to make the change. Okay, so it's just a call to the parents and you voters. If you want to see all this can carry on, then keep voting for the same people. Other than that, we have to make a change. We have to change our representation. So without any further ado, David, let's go to the tape.
This ideology and these lessons are poison for all kids. The design of this is to put into the minds of kids as young as kindergarten that you are not like him, he is not like her. All of these things are designed to divide you.
As teachers and teachers' unions continue to push critical race theory in the classroom.
Critical race theory, the study of the impact of racism, it is becoming a flashpoint in American schools.
Black and white children, Hispanic children, you know why they get along? Because they don't look at each other's color. So you're the racist, not them, not us.
Who wants to be a drag queen when they grow up?
The transgender student at some point during class also changed clothes and was revealed as her true gender.
The system's set up to where if you're teaching anything about gender identity, that you don't even have to notify parents when it's being taught. Parents have no idea, and they don't know how radically the sex ed has changed.
Here in America, our kids are taught divisive racial ideologies, skewed history, and a new kind of sex education that robs them of their innocence. This is the miseducation of our children. As parents, we worry about our kids. As a mom, I worry about my kids. What they're watching on TV, who they're friends with, what they do when I'm not around. Our children's health and safety is always on our minds. We think they're in good hands at school, but now, instead of teaching them basic math, science, and history, schools are becoming training grounds for political activism. I'm Jill Simonian. I have 2 young children, and I've experienced firsthand how our school system is being hijacked to indoctrinate young students. Racism, white privilege, gender identity. Words like these have been thrown around a lot in the media lately. And in an effort to fight what some see as privilege and disparity, many school districts are imposing new curriculum and policies that actually divide our kids rather than unite them. How do they do this? I wanted to find out.
In Cupertino, California, they were forcing first-grade students to deconstruct their racial and sexual identities and then rank themselves according to their power and privilege, separating 5- and 6-year-old kids into oppressor and oppressed based on their inborn identity categories. 5th graders in Philadelphia, they were forced to celebrate Black communism, and then they were forced to march into the auditorium and simulate a Black Power rally in Buffalo, New York. They were teaching that, quote, all white people perpetuate systemic racism. They were teaching students that white people derive their wealth from slavery, that white people are, quote, unfairly rich. They were even showing kindergartners a dramatization video of dead Black children, warning these kindergartners that they could be murdered by, quote, racist police at any time. This is explicit political indoctrination.
Most of these practices are propelled by what's known as DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. DEI claims to guarantee fair treatment, access, opportunity, and advancement for all. It is often presented as a new curriculum, new school policy, or mandated school activities, aiming to teach children to be accepting and tolerant of all people. Sounds nice, right? Well, come to find out, DEI is rooted in critical race theory. At its core, critical race theory teaches kids at an early age that if you are a minority, then the so-called system is rigged against you. And if you are white, you have privilege as an oppressor, and you must acknowledge and apologize for it. In schools, critical race theory infuses race into every lesson plan, regardless of the subject. It divides children solely based on race.
The activists play this really clever game. All the materials that they're presenting to parents, all the materials that they're presenting on their website, all the materials that they're sending home with students, they're all couched and camouflaged in this very nice rhetoric. It's about culturally responsive teaching. It's about social emotional learning. It's about diversity, inclusion, and belonging. All things that as neutral nouns are good, but once it becomes fully institutionalized in K-12 schools, you have now a generation of tens of millions of American kids that are going to be growing up in a world that is filled with ideology. They'll start not to think of themselves as individual human beings, but as a collection of group identity traits. I think that our country has entered a period of racial retrogression. We're actually in some ways going backwards. You see those old pictures of water fountains that are separated by race. And now you're seeing new pictures of public libraries being separated by race. And there is no way that we are going to be making progress as a country by renormalizing racial segregation.
Critical race theory is only the beginning. Many school curriculums are now embracing a new kind of sex education. Now, while age-appropriate sex education is important, many schools are introducing radical curriculum to kids as young as 5. For example, kindergartners are being pressured to question their gender and are exposed to ideas that are beyond their maturity level. In many cases, by the time they reach age 10, their sex education is less about health and more about learning adult sexual practices. In 2012, the National Sex Education Standards were established by an organization called SECUS. When you examine the national standards for K through 2nd grades, the lessons start with defining gender identity and stereotypes. By 3rd through 5th grade, children are expected to discuss sexual feelings and learn about hormone blockers for transgender kids. And by the time they reach grades 6 through 8, children are expected to define sexual acts and know how to access an abortion. Since the inception of these national standards, over 40% of school districts have adopted these directives. That's almost half of all schools in the country, and that number continues to grow year after year.
SECUS is the organization that is used to bring in a lot of the standards and the type of things we should be teaching in our K through 12 schools. If you go onto their website, it's very shocking what you may find, because they endorse and help sell a lot of types of sex toys.
And this is the organization advocating the types of sex education to be used in our schools.
Correct, yes. These organizations are partnering with our school district, but first of all, the parents don't know who these organizations are, and who are these supposed trusted adults that are giving advice to their kids, and what do they represent? This book was in the health framework for California in May of 2019, but parents found out what was in the book because there's training on how to have sadomasochism, bondage, restraint, blood play, sexting, anal sex, using ropes, cords, cuffs, and we just couldn't believe that they were recommending this to be a statewide read for 9th through 12th graders.
What do you say to people across the country that say, oh, that's not happening in my neck of the woods, that doesn't happen here?
There is a lot going on behind parents' backs nationally because of these different agencies that are now partnering with school districts. These outside agencies are reaching out to kids on many virtual platforms, and we have Amaze videos, cartoons. So it's on YouTube. Amaze is telling kids that you can be both genders, neither gender, anything in between, very similar to this book. And it also goes into other videos about puberty blockers, that if you're unsure of your gender, don't worry, you can stall and give yourself more time to decide, and it's a choice. Now, it's important to see that they're talking about this as a choice. So we have all these new pronouns that can be created and made up by a kid who's 3 years old. And according to our laws and policies, we have to affirm whatever that kid says that they are. And when they're getting teachings like this, starting even in preschool, you can understand and see that kids want to be different, creative, special, and they're going to start identifying, especially when we're using the word choice.
So kids are being encouraged to question their gender. How, if any way, is this tied to social justice and critical race theory?
Well, in critical race theory, the non-conforming genders are aligned with different minority groups. So when you look at non-conforming genders as being the victim, the marginalized, then who would want to be a biological gender that's considered the privileged, mean oppressor? Okay, so this is incentivizing kids to identify as a non-conforming gender so that they can play the role of the victim.
These extreme ideas have infiltrated our schools, and even the way our children learn history has been politicized. Curriculums are now designed to emphasize the failures of our American history while downplaying its many successes. You may have heard of the 1619 Project, which claimed that America's founding was not for independence in 1776, but rather when the first slaves arrived in Jamestown in 1619, putting race at the forefront rather than our liberty and freedom. Rewriting the narrative of our nation's history drives home the idea that America was never great, never something to be proud of.
History is about narratives and which narratives you choose and how in which you want to amplify or minimize certain things. And so the language that I like to use is that the headlines of American history are oftentimes being placed in the footnotes, and the footnotes of American history are now being placed in the headlines. A lot of times, the district leaders will say, hey, here's a program where there was a Hispanic hero or a Black hero, and we'll blow it up into a big lesson when it might be a really colorful story, but there's only so many hours in the day, And the way that the curriculum is set up is it will come like at the expense of something massive in American history, like something that has to do with the founding fathers. And so, as almost like a PR stunt, it'll be like, oh, look at how multicultural we are.
All of this is happening in the schools. It happened with you. You left.
Yep.
Do you regret it?
I don't regret not being in teaching right now because it's not an environment that is healthy for teachers, students, or for learning. I was told that behaviorally I needed to have different expectations for children based upon their race. I was told that expecting my students to show up on time and to turn in assignments on time, that was a sign of my white privilege. I was told these things that have nothing to do with academics, that if I can teach my students, not history, but to be activists, then they'll have a shot at life.
What are they seeking to accomplish? Why are they pushing this so hard?
Political and religious leaders have known for centuries, really since the beginning of civilization, that forming children between the ages of 0 and 6 is really essential. Critical race theorists, based in academia, what they did quite ingeniously is fairly simple. They took Marx's old dichotomy between the oppressor and oppressed, and they took that basic same framework, the same idea based in Marx's conflict theory, but they replaced it with racial categories. They say that the new oppressor is not an economic oppressor, it's a racial oppressor.
Would you say that the majority of parents are not aware that their students are being taught leftist ideologies?
Someone who is confident that their school district was apolitical 10 years ago shouldn't be confident today. It's not just Berkeley and Brooklyn and Seattle. Critical race theory is now in schools in North Carolina and Missouri and Texas and Florida, states that are nominally controlled by conservative politicians, but those specific institutions are controlled by, in many cases, dedicated ideological activists.
Sending our children off to school is not as simple as it used to be. We want our children to be educated, not indoctrinated. Schools should celebrate traditional values like hard work and service to one another and pride in our country, not progressive ideologies. So what can we do about it? Fortunately, many states are banning critical race theory in schools, thanks to parents standing up.
Critical race theory is teaching that white people are bad. That's not true. That would teach my daughter that her mother's evil. And who are you to educate my children, or any of our children, in life issues? That's our job.
You gonna deliberately teach kids this white kid right here got it better than you because he white? You gonna purposely tell a white kid, oh, the black people are all down and suppressed? How do I have 2 medical degrees if I'm sitting here oppressed?
This isn't a political indoctrination camp, okay? It's public education. We want to teach education, not left-wing ideas that aren't backed up by facts or science.
You are not the moral authority over our children. We, the parents, are. This is emotionally abusive to our kids, and I don't care how much grant money you are being offered, grow some integrity, and deny this hateful agenda.
And why are they teaching me about sexuality and how to identify? I don't want to hear about sexuality during class in front of other students because that should be a private thing.
You know, and I know I'm not the only parent fighting us all across America right now. Schools are trying to poison our children's minds. And as long as I'm standing here on this good ground earth of God, I will fight.
As parents, we have a right and a responsibility to be involved in our children's education. It's up to us to attend local school board meetings, review the materials being taught in classes, talk with and question teachers and principals why certain perspectives are included in pillar subjects. Be brave, speak out. Our children and our country are depending on us to protect and preserve the ideals that make us who we are as Americans. We can no longer allow this kind of miseducation. It is the most important battle we must fight for our children.
Daddy teaches you can be anything in this world that you want to be, right? Don't Daddy teach you that?
Yeah, and it doesn't matter if you're black or white or any color.
Doesn't matter if you're black, white, brown, yellow, right?
Black.
And how we treat people is based on who they are and not what color they are.
And if they're nice and smart.
See, this is how children think right here. Critical race theory wants to end that. Not with my children. It's not gonna happen. My baby's gonna know that no matter what she wants to be in life, all she has to do is work hard, and she can become that.
Okay, welcome back. So there you have it, folks. I mean, it's happening all across the country. You saw there's clips from all sorts of school committee meetings across the country, and, you know, and Danvers is no different. So again, we all are going to have to stop and think what's going on. And again, it's all about the money. I don't know if you caught the little segment there where they said that it's all built in to the curriculum that they I don't know, they adopt, they buy, or whatever it is, but they get money for doing this. The federal government says, well, if you use this program, then we'll give you this much money. So they do it because they can get the money. But it's like the woman said, if you look at what's in there, it's not good stuff. It's not only age inappropriate, it's developmentally inappropriate, and it's not good. And what's really funny is that they know that they can't stand up to scrutiny. That's why, I mean, even here and there, you have 3 minutes to speak, or maybe 4 minutes. That's all you can, and then whatever you say, it doesn't matter. Let's just hope it goes away, and they just keep going. Nothing changes. That's why we need to vote in new leaders from the local levels to the state level, and into the federal level. You know, we need. You know, that's why the Constitution was written that way, especially for the congressmen. Every 2 years, we got to rotate the crops. We got to get them out of there. The longer they stay in, the more, you know, the richer they get, and the poorer we get. so that's the deal right there. And when you look at the education, David, let's cue up that picture number 2A. They're talking about, you know, back in the old days, they had. Common Core, and they had exemplar words that they would, these exemplar words were words that encapsulated ideas, and they would weave them into every subject. So this is what diversity, equity, inclusion, and all this stuff. See, these are the words that they use, and they use it in all the different you know, subjects, and so it's like they're being indoctrinated into this when they don't even really fully understand what all this stuff means. There's double meanings to all this stuff. Okay, we can get rid of that, but that's the word cloud. Word clouds, it's really interesting. I got another one coming up further about the current issues of the day that we don't hear about. But again, what's going on in the schools is a macrocosm. I mean, because now these kids, they're leaving grammar school, going to high school, going to college. I mean, we already saw what the colleges did in the 60s with all that, you know, revolution stuff. And so it now it's just perpetuating itself, okay? And so it's come to fruition that, as they say, the roosters have come home to roost, or whatever that saying is. But yeah, let's put up picture 2B, which again, it's the same thing about the schools, what they were talking about. It's the history. History is not here for you to like or dislike. It's there for you to learn from it. And then if it offends you, even better, because then you are less likely to repeat it. It's not yours to erase. It belongs to all of us. You know, when BLM was out, they were tearing down statues that actually supported their side of the argument, but they were so blinded by their rage and hate that they just ripped everything down. It was mindless. Okay, so history is very important. We need to see what happened in history. I mean, it's like, you know, the simplest example of all would be Whitney Houston. I just thought of this, you know, I heard a Whitney Houston song as I was driving in. I said, you know, Whitney, she's dead. She died of a drug overdose, fell asleep. But didn't we all learn from, what's his name, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and Elvis Presley, and all the great icons that they died from drug overdoses, all this instant fame and all this, you know, drug culture living. It's a death sentence, but yet people still do it over and over again. It never ends. And now we got adding fentanyl to the mix. It's even getting worse, you know. But again, we've got a lot of problems in this country that we need to address. Okay, so let's see. Where am I and why am I here? Okay, we're going to go into Constitution Day. Again, this is part of our you know, it's all about elections, it's all about education. So Constitution Day was September 17th, and we really need to focus in on the Constitution. I mean, let's just, David, let's put up picture number 3. Again, because you got to remember that democracy never lasts long. It soon wastes and exhausts and murders itself. There has never been a democracy yet that did not commit suicide. And that's John Adams, one of our founding fathers. That's why they created the Constitution. And within the Constitution, it requires that every state in the Union, you can get rid of that, David, and every state in the Union needs to be a republic, not a democracy. It's written in the Constitution, and every state has its own constitution that defines itself as a republic. We are a Republican form of government at the state level and a Republican form of government at the federal level. And the difference between the Republican form of government and a democracy, if you don't know it, then you better find out what it is, because apparently you didn't learn it, because that's the essence of our problems. And we got leaders, our elected leaders don't understand. They create laws that, you know, violate, that are against the Constitution. In fact, there were people that tried to pass a law that would say you need to cite the section of the Constitution that gives you the authority and the right to create this law. And they, oh no, we can't do that, because they can't do it because half the stuff they write are outside the bounds of the Constitution. And we need to stop it, because we've tolerated this stupidity and these fools for decades, but it's coming to a critical head now. We're way too far gone for what's happening here today. So we're all going to need to as the democratic form of voting, we have to vote them out, because they're not really following the Constitution. Now, again, in honor of Constitution Day, David, can you put up, picture 4. So, the first 2 there are all worn out because I've used them so much, but I have a bunch of new citizens rule books, which are the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and a bunch of supporting quotes and things, little stories from the founding fathers about the Constitution and why it's the best form of government, the Constitution, in republic, as opposed to a democracy. But all right, you can take that down, David. And again, if you want a free copy, contact DCAT, and just I'll leave some here. They can, I'll call them. I'll get them to you somehow. We'll mail them, or you can pick them up here. But go online and just look up the Constitution, read it. See, in the Declaration of Independence, which is the basis, the foundation of the Constitution, it says that we need magnanimous men and leaders to, and magnanimous means you're going to do what's right, irregardless of what the public opinion is. See, we're basing all our laws and everything on public opinion when we should be doing what's right, what's constitutional, what do we need to do to keep things at an even keel. Progress is good, but not all progress is good, okay, as we heard in the tapes. Some progress is good, and some of this we're going backwards. No, we don't want to go backwards, okay, so we want to move forward. So again, it's a failure. It's an epic failure of our educational system to where we are now. We have a bunch of people who think they know what they're talking about, and they don't. Oh, they probably say the same thing about me. But again, the proof is in the pudding. They pass a law, and then all of a sudden they have to pass 2 more laws to fix the loopholes and all the problems that law created. So it just never ends, and the taxes keep going up. And actually, somewhere we got to, I know that in 1997 I read an article, and again, because the fake news obfuscates all this truth, and now you got high tech can hide all these facts, but it would be good to find out what it is now. And the metric is, in 1997, the quote, it was in the Salem News too, and basically what they said was, we have passed the break-even point in 1997, which was almost 25 years ago, that more than 50% of the people in this country derive all or a major portion of their income from government work. Okay, so what that means is they're either employed by the government or like these Department of Defense contractors whose majority of their people, even though it's a private industry, they're getting money from the government to build the planes or weapon systems or whatever it is in the Department of Defense contractors. So if that was 50% then, that means that the other 50% who are working were paying all the taxes to pay for that other 50% because their money is all tax money. Their money, their paycheck, everything they get is tax money. So you can't operate, you can't continue to function like that. And I think it's worse now. Now we're hiring up another 87,000. Who knows what the metric is now? I mean, so now even if it went up 10% and we got 60% of the people, all the money is being paid from the 40% of the people that are paying taxes, it's not a good metric. It's not a good ratio. No, it's supposed to be the other way around. The government needs to be lean and mean, and the people need to be working to support it, and not not more than 50%. That's just not the way it's supposed to work. All right, David, I don't even know where to go now. You know what I mean? Let's just put up picture number 5. Picture number 5. And again, our leaders, this might as well have been President Biden because he got up there and he says our economy is in excellent shape. Well, but of course ours, on the other hand, our 401ks are falling down, and our wages are stagnant. And inflation is going through the roof. Okay, so our money is, even if we're getting pay raises and this and that, nothing's going to keep up with the 9% inflation rate, gas prices and everything else. That's all part of the Green Deal. Okay, you can cut that up. The Green Deal, which is basically was Joe Biden's Build Back Better legislation, which they just changed the name. It's the same thing. They changed the name to the Inflation Reduction Act, and so boom, there you go. It's the same stuff. It's actually feeding the fire of inflation. It's feeding the fire. It's going to get worse. It's not going to get better, people. It's going to get worse. So we need to vote these people out. I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know what it's going to take. Well, okay, David, let's go with picture 6 real quick. I mean, we're here. This is the word. I love these little word clouds. So, with everything that's going on, all the wokeness, defund the police, rising taxes, the socialism, all the reparations, packing the Supreme Court, open borders, big government, pay back the student loans, you get your bribes, everybody's pro-criminal and anti-police, the free speech is gone, they want to dismember the Second Amendment. You can get rid of that, David. It's just, really, come on, people. This, enough is enough. The government that affects, that has less impact works the best. There was some quote, but I mean, they're beyond passing laws to protect us. Now they're passing laws to make us criminals. This is what they're doing. In fact, I think that now anyone who supports President Trump now is going to be a domestic terrorist, or if you go to school committee meetings, domestic terrorist, it's just a shame. So all I can say is, David, picture 7 is, have you had enough? We're going to have to vote Republican. We're going to make some signs that say, had enough, vote Republican, but, we got Rayla Campbell running for Secretary of State, Anthony Moore running for auditor, Bob May running for Congress against Seth Moulton, Damian Ankertel's running against Senator Joan Lovely here for State House. We got to get rid of the licenses for illegal immigrants. That's another. Joan Lovely and Sally Kearns passed that law, and it will be on the ballot, even though it wasn't in the one that you got mailed, but it needs to be repealed. Jay McMahon's running for Attorney General, and Jeff Deal and Leah Allen, who lives right here in Danvers, are running for Lieutenant Governor. And again, Mike Bean, who will be hopefully running against Sally Kearns for the state rep seat. We're waiting for the legal decisions and process to hopefully he will be running against her. And again, if you don't vote for change, it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. So all I can say is I had so much more to say, and now I'm out of time. So I'm gonna. I don't know where to go from here. Other than, we have October show. I will continue about voting and how, we got to detail out some of these things that are just not really right with our elected leaders and how they've driven us over the inflation and fiscal suicide curve here. It's just bad. And we will put up, because I'm going to end on second ending on David, picture number 6. I mean, no, number 8. I'm sorry. I can't count anymore. Losing my mind. Picture number 8. I saw this, I thought it was pretty funny. It's the 4 stages of life via the bottle. Okay, so the baby bottle, it's the first quarter of life, then adolescence, we're drinking Coke, and then when we get in our 30s and 40s, we're drinking, and then at my age, we're all looking for the IVs next. Okay, you can take that down there. I just thought that was funny. Life by the bottle. Okay, so again, I always like to end with the good news, so I'm going to have to, just call it now. I know I got a little carried away here, but hopefully you're following the bouncing ball. The media, again, kind of like what that guy said, they amplify, everything that's Democratic has been amplified to be so great, and anything that's Republican has been minimized and demonized to be the worst thing in the world. And again, it's anything that's, it's just demonized, and then the truth is obfuscated because they keep blocking everything. I mean, even the CDC now has backtracked, and now they're back to the Great Barrington Report, which we talked about before. They retract it, but does anybody act? Do you know that there's a whole increase of deaths, unprecedented increase in deaths that are over and above, and they say it's probably because of the vaccines having all these unintended consequences, long-term effects. So, but they're not telling you that because they can't, because but. That's, you got to find it. So, okay, David, we're going to go to picture number 9. I got to try to control myself. And so picture number 9 is the Serenity Prayer, and that's right. Okay, so God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking, as Jesus did, this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may reasonably be happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next life. Amen. And that is the Serenity Prayer, the full text. I mean, we always just hear the first part of it. You can take it down, David. And but again, we need to kind of diversify ourselves from. I mean, I know this is my 1 hour out of the 168 hours for the week or whatever is in there for the week hours. But I'm just ringing the bell. I'm the town crier. Hey, people, there's something wrong. Let's find out what's going on here. That's all I'm asking. I don't, other than that, I'm busy living my own life. I got enough stuff to do, okay? But I do try to just get involved to try to point people in the right direction. We need to change a few things here. We got to tweak a few things here. We need to get some new leaders in here because the ones we got just aren't really cutting the mustard, folks. It's just not cutting it. It's just not happening. And the proof is in the pudding. The violence and just the fact that the defund the police and what's going on in these cities across this nation is it's more than sinful. It's just evil. It's pure evil. And the pure disregard for life, the lack of respect for people upon people that we just meet in the street. People are sucker punching people, throwing them off the subways and throwing them in front of the trains. I've never seen anything like it. It's heartbreaking to see this. What's it going to take for it to stop? Can't we get along? Apparently not. And what's wrong with the picture? Well, we all going to have to work together to find out. So I'm out of time. So God have mercy on us all, and I pray for you, and I love you guys, and let's all try to work together. Amen. Good night. See you next week, next month, whenever.